You're watching Open Agenda.
Hi, and welcome to this new episode of Open Agenda. I'm your host, Joe Venosa, and more importantly, we've got some old friends in the house. Mr. Jim Atkins from Mardella.
Yes.
Thank
hello.
you for being here. Okay.
Yeah.
And Mr. Joe White from Parsonsburg.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being here. So in this episode, we're going to investigate, or at least maybe discuss and elaborate upon some of the things that were brought up at last night's County Council meeting on August 4th with regard to the moratorium on data centers. Right? I believe it was Resolution 125-2026. This put in place, as I said, a year-long moratorium on data center construction in Wicomico County.
Public hearing on resolution number 125-2026. This is establishing a temporary moratorium on the acceptance, processing, review, approval, and issuance of permits, site plans, development approvals, and other authorizations for data centers pending the review and adoption of appropriate county regulations.
Jim Atkins, Wicomico County. First, I'd like to thank the council for bringing this up so it can be discussed tonight. A lot has happened in the past 2 months on the Eastern Shore with data centers. Just a few points that I'd like to highlight. Data centers employ an average of 30 to 50 full-time employees. That's not very many people for the amount of room they take up. An average-sized data center consumes enough electricity to power 100,000 homes. We have 104,000 residents in this county, so we have a whole lot less than 100,000 homes. Since 2018, the state of Maryland has reduced the power that's generated in the state of Maryland by 4,400 megawatts. Most of our electricity is transmitted from Pennsylvania into Maryland because we don't produce enough here. A medium-sized data center consumes 300,000 gallons of water per day, and a large facility can consume as much as 5 million gallons per day. There are too many unknowns to allow a data center to be brought in until we get answers. The amount of electricity, customers' bills are going to go up. Water usage, what type of water is going to be used? Will it be clean? Will it be soil water? Will it be a closed system? You have noise and light pollution that comes from data center. If a data center is located outside of a municipal location, would it affect the water table for private wells in the county? We all remember a few years ago during a drought, we had a lot of well problems. Let's pull 300,000 gallons a day out of the water table and see how many wells go dry in the county. I strongly support a moratorium to further research this before the county commits or allows any data centers. Thank you.
Good evening. Joe Venosa, District 7, Wicomico County. Firstly, I'd like to thank the council for taking up this issue of the moratorium. It's obviously been discussed quite a bit. I think it's the right decision, particularly given the unknowns. Ultimately, what we've seen throughout the state of Maryland, regardless of your political views or ideology, is that rural areas tend to get shafted by the state when it comes to the policies of data centers. This is true across Western Maryland, and it's true on the Eastern Shore. We simply do not have the political and financial power to fight back. And again, I say that earlier about regardless of your political views, because I think this is an issue that unites a lot of us, regardless of what party we identify in and where we live. We understand that the threats are economic and environmental. My concern is what happens after this moratorium, because I have a fear that if certain people are elected next year and they happen to control the council, they will push for data centers after this moratorium. So I'm encouraging all people who are running for office as candidates to publicly pledge where you stand on the matter.
Hi, my name is Matt Blades, live in Wicomico County. Like them, I don't even want a one-year moratorium. I want an outright ban on all large-scale data centers. We don't have the capacity to run this.
Good evening. Carol Donahue, Board President of the Wicomico Environmental Trust. We'd like to first agree that it's important to update the code. Our zoning code needs clear guidance on its application to data centers, and we applaud the county's foresight in proposing a moratorium at this point.
Good evening. My name is Monica Brooks, President of Wacomico County NAACP. We did already submit a letter last month in regards to the data centers, but I did also just want to share for public's sake, yes, we are certainly in support of the moratorium, but we're also believing that once that opportunity to really deep dive on what all is encompassing with these data centers.
There's two fears here. One is we're experiencing this now with the state overriding our planning and zoning laws that we have. So these messages need to really go to our state legislators, not just locally, but all over the state. Because a lot of the stuff we do on this council can be overridden by the state. I'm going to support this moratorium.
This is our Planning and Zoning Director, Tracy Taylor. We're very fortunate in Wycomico County because you have absolutely the very, very best Planning and Zoning Director in the state of Maryland, if not the country here. I say that in all honesty, not just because of her knowledge, but the fact that I've never met an individual and a government official that actually reacted to public opinion and tried to do the best and to be as fair as possible to everyone in the community. She does a great job.
I've been listening intently to all the comments tonight, and I've made diligent notes. Obviously, I don't pretend to be an expert on data centers at this point. I don't think any of the planning directors that I've been meeting and speaking with consider ourselves experts, but we are working together. I think a comment was made earlier about extending our collaboration beyond this county. I do that as planning director. I meet pretty regularly with other planning directors on the shore, and especially the lower eastern shore. We have met on this issue. 2 weeks ago, MACO has been very active, and 2 weeks ago, the MACO affiliate, we met for 2 hours. The primary topic of discussion was data centers and getting up to speed on what every county is doing. We know that there'll be a report coming out in September on data centers from the state, so it seems appropriate that we would wait for the results of that report. But in addition, and as was mentioned by Councilman Holloway, I fully expect that there will be legislation introduced this next session. I'm not sure which way it will go, but we have already been warned through MACO that a complete ban is likely out of the question. We will end up in a lawsuit if we attempt to go that direction. So I do think this moratorium will give us some time to thoughtfully consider regulations, as has been stated tonight. And as you all know, we have just started our comprehensive plan update. We're getting ready to get our website up and running and our community survey and the like. We definitely want to incorporate some policies and some thought process into the comprehensive plan, which will then ultimately be followed by our comprehensive rezoning of our ordinance, which was adopted in 2004. I feel very confident that given the year, will give us ample time to make these considerations, hear from the public, and come up with a draft that will be suitable to the community.
Just for the public's knowledge too, because this is exactly what Joe was talking about. A very brief overview of what has happened in Wycomico County in reference to planning and zoning ordinance, period, as well as solar farms, solar panels.
Yes, of course, seeing the solar legislation, which preempted our ability to do anything about solar. The solar regs were drafted. They overrode our local regs. In addition to that, the state law stated that our priority preservation area, which in our case is our entire A1 zone, that there could be up to 5% of our land that could be dedicated to solar, which is a huge number given the amount of acres that we have in the A1 zoning district. We tried to argue that and say that any lands that were already permanently preserved not count against us. We were not successful in that effort in this last session. And we've already been told by MACO that the word out is that solar will not be revisited this next session. So there would be no point to move forward on those bills. And then we had legislation which dictated that anywhere in the county where we allow single-family dwelling units, that we also are required to allow manufactured and modular housing by right. And then we were also, as one of the items that's coming forward is in the next, it was introduced at last council meeting and it'll be on next council meeting, is the accessory dwelling unit provision, which means that you're allowed to have accessory dwelling units by right anywhere where single-family detached dwelling units are allowed. I fully expect that there will be some legislation coming this session regarding data centers. What that might be, I don't know.
And it's really not whether the local jurisdiction is in favor or against it, or the citizens are in favor or against it. It's a matter of the state of Maryland, as Joe said, eliminating local autonomy. We have the privilege to make those decisions for ourselves based on community input.
Yes, it is preemptive legislation, which means it overrides our local zoning. We do not have a say in that. And even if we didn't change our zoning code, we'd still be bound by it because it's state law.
I've been working on data center reform issues for the past 4 years. My background is in land conservation, natural resources, agricultural land protection. So this is something that we've known was going to be an issue and have seen this coming about. About 3 years ago, I was one of the very first people to actually join the Maryland Data Center Reform Coalition. So we're the ones who basically put together the data center study bill, which is actually cited in our legislation. That bill, by the way, became law, was vetoed. Pardon me. That bill was passed by the General Assembly, was vetoed by the governor. The General Assembly disagreed with the governor and overrode that veto, so that we can actually know what are the impacts of data centers.
All those in favor of Resolution 125, 2026, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution passes unanimously.
Seems to be in line with what they've done in Worcester and what they are planning to do also in Dorchester.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, I think we all would agree that the moratorium in the short term is a good idea. I think we all kind of spoke in favor.
It's a good opportunity to get our ducks in a row.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, to get our ducks in a row. But of course, that doesn't negate the fact that there are a lot of questions and concerns about those ducks. So we'll be back with our next segment of Open Agenda, and we will dive into the moratorium on data centers. Hi, welcome back to Open Agenda. Gentlemen, we, as stated in our intro, we saw quite a bit as far as activity in our county regarding concerns and action on possible data center construction. So with the passage of Resolution 125-2026, we now have a 1-year moratorium on data center construction and development in Wicomico County. Generally speaking, how do you feel about that? And what are you concerned about with moving forward?
Jim was the first one, to my knowledge, to bring this up several months ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
No, I'm very happy with the 1-year moratorium. I don't want people to think that I am against data centers in a whole, because I'm not. They're necessary, and as we move on, they're going to be required. My whole concern with bringing all this up is the regulations that need to be put in place before one is allowed to affect our lives, because everywhere that they are being put, people talk about the rise in energy costs, the amount of water that they use, which is a very important part of the Eastern Shore, the amount of water that we have, because the majority of this area is on wells.
Yeah.
So, if the water table goes down and you don't have water, you've got a problem. Light impact, noise impact, all those types of things. This just seemed to be moving too quickly all of a sudden. And when you have Mako come down here to the county council, I guess maybe 2 months ago, and tell the county council not to worry about it because they're not interested in the Eastern Shore. Well, then the very next week, you have them trying to put one in Federalsburg, and that's, last I looked, still on the Eastern Shore. But when you look at since 2018, which is only 8 years ago, the state has shut down 6,000 megawatts of electricity generated in this state, and only replaced it with 1,600. That's a 4,400 megawatt difference that we're importing from New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and everybody looks at their electric bills and they see the transmission charges that are on those electric bills. If we're going to have data centers, then some of them are starting to generate their own electricity with little miniature nuclear
Closed loop nuclear
systems. Fine, do that. But don't expect the community, again, to pay for somebody else's project.
I want to say I was in favor of doing the 1-year moratorium, but kind of if you listen to what Jim said, there's a lot to unravel, and the one mistake we could make is treating data centers like the boogeyman. And the reason why I say that is similar to what, like you said, when MACO, the Maryland Association of Counties, come down and they help county councils figure out, they're like a liaison between them and the legislators in Annapolis. At the end of the day, if we did a direct ban, it's gonna be challenged in court. We're gonna lose, and or most likely the state of Maryland's gonna come down, just like they have done with so many other guidelines lately, and shove it down our throats. Doing a 1-year moratorium with no action plan is putting your head in the sand, hiding from the boogeyman.
Yeah.
Right.
So we need to address these. Now, we've seen Worcester County address these in pieces, and they mostly focus on infrastructure.
Yeah.
Infrastructure could be electricity, but most likely it's water.
The water's the big one, yeah.
And one of the things that I have found in doing some research on this is some municipalities across the country have placed limits on the amount of electricity and the amount of water that these data centers can use, which may be, everything new creates other improvements.
Yeah.
So, a year down the road, hopefully a lot of these questions and things will be answered and solved. But if you allow them to just come in here and build it and use our electricity and use our water, what incentive do they have to find a better system?
Well, and I think that's an important point because it's going to be curious to see what the industry, at least in Maryland, does on those issues.
Yes.
But, to your point, Joe, in terms of it being a nuanced, complicated issue, I think it's really important to emphasize because I suspect that we are going to get legislation from the state that does address some of those because right here in Wycomico County, we've got Salisbury University, we've got Tidal Health. Both of them rely on a good deal and an increasingly large amount of AI processing and energy generation. And
every person who spoke at the council meeting in favor of the moratorium, including myself, uses a smartphone.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean,
no one's disputing the importance of it. I think it comes down to, though, again, can we physically sustain it in this particular county?
Okay.
And my view of it based on the data that you provided, particularly with how it affects the paleo channel and our access to water, and in the context of Maryland is one of the most challenged states in the union right now regarding energy importation. It seems like a really catastrophic, or a possibly catastrophic combination of factors.
But I think Jim actually just touched on something that I think the council should be setting these types of guidelines. And I can give you another industry that's met this challenge, completely different industry, but set parameters on how much net electricity they can use. So if they can produce their own, great.
Yeah.
This is how much net you can use per square foot.
Yeah.
Same with water.
Yeah.
The industry in question is car washes. So if you opened a car wash in the 1960s, you build a building, you put some hoses in, hook a well to it, and you're washing cars. You're making money. Go to build a car wash today. You have to be able to recycle a certain amount of your rinsate and reuse it. So a car wash today has filter systems. Now, is it the part that's washing your car? No, that rinsate is used to do the pre-rinse, right? Just to get get it wet and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There are ways to challenge industry without cutting jobs, without diminishing business opportunities. My fear is that we're going to spend 360 days not doing a whole lot on this, and then wake up and our homework's due.
Well, I'll tell you what, Josh Hastings was and I believe still is, he's on the state board for, mentioned that he had served as a liaison to help sort of planning the implementation of them.
Yes.
I'm curious to see what actual practical suggestions can be brought with that connection to the county council over the next year, because
Well, I'd like to talk more about like what types of ideas we would actually want them to think about.
what would it look like? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, and with the county's comprehensive plan due next year,
Yeah.
that this has to be part of it. But I'm with Joe in the fact that, okay, great, we've got a 1-year moratorium, but the next step isn't taken, and you can call them blue ribbon panels or white papers or all these great names that everybody has, but you need to get a group of people together, and this is their job to work on data centers. What requirements are going to be so that they can come to the council and propose something to the council and work on it, not just say, okay, well, we're going to wait a year to see what the state's done or maybe what else needs to happen, and then we'll make a decision. At the end of the year, in my world, we need to have a decision. We need to know what direction we're going in at the end of the year. That's what this 1-year moratorium is.
Well, and it's going to be interesting to see as the moratorium develops. There has been such a national pushback against data centers in so many areas.
And in some instances, because they simply treat them as the boogeyman,
Right.
and then and listen, I don't want one near my house either. But if we don't set parameters, it's going to end up getting forced down us by the state, and then that's how you end up with, like we've seen out on Union Church Road, solar farms right next to people's houses.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're going to come back in our next segment, and I'd like us to talk about in some detail what are the possible opportunities that potential data centers could bring if they were to come here, and what are some of the pitfalls and dangers, because there's certainly a lot of arguments on both sides of this discussion.
Okay.
We'll hang out? Okay, great. Stick around. We'll be right back for the next segment of Open Agenda. Hi, and welcome back to the next segment of Open Agenda. So we're continuing our discussion about potential data centers in the future and also the related moratorium that was just passed. Again, pros and cons about what their ramifications could be in Wicomico County. Mr. Joe, you seem to have some possible points about that you think should be raised.
I just think there's some mile markers where, for the public, for transparency's sake and for public accountability, things that the public has asked for this to be addressed. Electricity. I think that's the number one thing on people's mind. Of course, they are frustrated, as Jim said. They're frustrated that electric bills are so high. They're frustrated that the state of Maryland's electric policies seem to be really turned against us as private citizens right now. But two is water. Okay. Now in Worcester County, they also have put a moratorium in. Their moratorium is really built around the lack of infrastructure for water supply. And having owned businesses in Worcester County, it's always about capacity. They call EDUs. We only have one municipality besides Salisbury, but only one municipality town size in Wicomico that has EDU capacity, and that's Willards. And when you look at what Worcester County was going through with the potential landing of the cable wire from Global Links, which is part of Amazon, that's the closest town to there. I don't know of any plans for them to tunnel a wire over, but I want to make sure for the folks on that side of the county, as well as the rest of the county, that that's not what the intention is. The third one for me was the noise, and I suggested at last night's meeting that they use the health department for that. We need to have work sessions. I suggested that we bring Delmarva Power in to talk about it. We should bring people in from this industry and talk to them.
Related to that, and then I want to get over to Jim on this, is something that I've had a lot of conversations about because I tend to know a lot of contractors and people in the construction industry locally. Some of them live in my district. And this is the issue that I'm actually also curious about, is as the data center development intensifies nationally, one of the big concerns among the construction trades and people in the building industry is the actual material shortage of things that they rely on. Fiber optic cables, copper, metal. This is something that is not often discussed, but when they were building the new Blackwell Hall here on campus, which they're almost done. I talked to a lot of contractors who said they had some real problems in terms of getting necessary materials because so many of the things that they traditionally rely on for their raw, goods are going to data center development.
Well, and one other point Jim made earlier that I thought was great was about having these meetings before white papers or whatever are written. Have the meetings be public so that the citizens are a part of this process, or at least can view it.
I think we all would agree we don't want to happen to the data center development as would happen with the liquor dispensary issues, where it was a relatively close process where a lot of people in the community felt that they were shut out of the discussion.
And there was no minutes.
No
and
minutes.
There's no video of those meetings.
Yeah, we just need to, we need to do our diligence on it over the next year and find out what our options are. And like I say, I am not anti-data centers. Our world runs on data now. But there has to be some type of controls over it and where it is and how it's placed and how it affects people.
Yeah. It's not a black or white argument. No. And I think that's, as what is often the case in the world we live in now, it's sort of framed as that. You're either for or against it.
But there is talk about the opportunities for job creation, IT jobs. Those also should be explored. I mean, not because it would make or break whether or not we allow them, but just so we can measure what is the impact. If the raw materials are going to be scarce and it's going to drive up cost of other construction, but that it also create X amount of jobs, because a lot of these jobs, as you've stated, are front loaded, right?
Yes, and there's just so much that people haven't thought of or don't know about. Mr. Martin last night from Bivalve brought up another topic that just wouldn't have crossed my radar in 100 years, and that was the fact that if this water from these places is discharged, even though it's filtered and discharged out, it's at a high temperature, and will kill and have an effect on fish and seafood in this area where it's discharged from. So,
but can't they have cooling towers like they do at a generation plant?
But
they should be in the code.
What I'm saying is that's another thing that you've got to get all these people together, like you say, that have knowledge about all this and can say, what if you've got to do this?
Well, to your point, I think last night's public comments did more for the discussion about planning for data centers than anything the county itself has done. Just a shout out, Michael Perunsky's comments about battery storage and possible, fire threats and concerns. A lot of people walked away from his comments from like, wow, I never thought about that. Yeah. Even council members.
It was a great perspective.
Yeah.
But this is why the public should be involved.
Right, because you had 15, 20 people talk about data centers, and everybody is coming from a different point in view. You didn't hear that much with all the comments last night about data centers. You didn't hear that much repetition. So many people had a different view, a different opinion, or a different possible problem that one of these will cause, and it was very informative.
If we just try to, as a county, go with a strict ban, it's not likely to succeed only because of the state of Maryland going to enforce it. So we would be better off setting our own.
And I'm sure we're going to have a conversation about that down the road whenever.
And I was happy to hear Ms. Tracy Taylor say last night that she's in contact with the other counties on the shore and that they are all discussing this. So,
that is one advantage we have in Wycomico County right now for situations like this, is that we have Tracy Taylor. She has been a huge asset to the county from everything she's touched and help fix some other woes and help mitigate. I remember bringing up a concern about when they were going to limit the Board of Variance could look at. She stepped up the communication side, so she addressed it in a creative way, but just a practical way, right?
Yes, and in a timely way.
Very timely.
I mean, same day almost.
So maybe you set enough processes in place that no place in Wycomico County would qualify for, not to necessarily keep them out, but just to protect the residents and their homes, their quality of life.
It's going to be an issue in the future. I think we all can agree on that much. Well, I appreciate your insights on this. Again, a lot to chew on, and I think we will revisit this very soon, in fact. So thanks for your time, and thank you for watching, and we'll be back very soon with another episode of Open Agenda. Take care out there.